Hello, Tom Levecki here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. Today we got a fellow Jerseyan. Earlier today we had Jackie DeAngelis, Fox Business correspondent, has her own show. She was on a podcast earlier today. So we have another fellow Jerseyan on. He is half of the Good Tunes Music Podcast. What is Good Tunes Music Podcast? It is a music-centric comedy podcast with hosts Tim Montalvo and Roger Wuy. They look at newly discovered jams, interview local Jersey bands, and tell their stories and tales. Tim or Timothy? What do you like to go by?
Tim.
Tim? Welcome to the New Theory Podcast. How you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right. So first, let's get into it. So I have a podcast now, 3 years. Labor of Love. Why start a podcast?
I've always wanted to do it. I really got into it these last handful of years. I really got into the comedians doing the podcast, like Bobby Lee, Andrew Santino, Bad Friends, Tiger Belly, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I got obsessed with those guys, and I always watch the YouTube videos over listening. I'm a very visual person. Yeah. So I've been wanting to do it. The Idiot Box channel that I made on YouTube, I did that a couple years ago. I think I did that, started in 2017. And I had branded Good Tunes because my handle on Instagram is Timmy Good Tunes. And that was just like a throwaway thing. Yeah, that was just like a throwaway thing years ago that someone that I worked with found out that I sang in bands and stuff like that. And she was like, "Oh, look, it's Timmy Good Tunes." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then Instagram came along. I was like, "Yeah, that's a good handle." So I kind of just kept that brand, I guess. Yeah, and then the pandemic hit, the lockdown. I was in the events industry, large scale events,
yikes.
Doing video booths, photo booth, interactive activations for like Netflix and Adidas and like big scale events, stuff like that.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so we were the industry that was cut, So I had a lot of time on my hands, to say the least. But also at the same time, there was a little bit light at the end of the tunnel. My parents, who have a house in Freeholds where I am right now. Yeah. My dad's job was moving to Florida, and he was going to work there for like a year anyway, but keep the house here and then, retire after that year, something fun, live in Florida for a year, go for it. Yeah. And I was like, well, this thing kind of just hit and I can't pay rent anymore. So you got an empty house. Here I come.
I love it. So this is our first squatter on the podcast. I love it.
There it is. Proudly. My mommy loves me and I don't care.
I love it. No, listen, Italian Americans, we stay home late. It just happens. It's part of the culture. So it's like I was, in my 20s, and people would be like, "Well, you live home with your mom. What do you tell women?" I'm like, "I have a 72-year-old roommate." But I didn't stay home to 28, and I would have still stayed home if I could. So I get it. Shit, especially, with the pandemic and everything else going on. So your background, right, Tim? Are you comedian, band, both? Walk us through it.
I can count on my hand the amount of time someone growing up or like meeting and stuff, joking around with, has told me I should be on SNL. So there's that. And then there's my love for music. I got my love for music from my dad. He was always singing while me and my brother were trying to fall asleep. He's just in the hallway ironing his clothes for the next day. Cool. We're just like singing his Spanish tunes. My family's from Ecuador, so.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
My fiance is from Ecuador. What part of Ecuador? There you go.
Yeah, we got family in Quito. We got family in Manta.
Wow.
All around. Yeah, wow. They're everywhere.
I have a little salchipapa. We're good to go. All right, I get it. All right, so now I like even more. All right, so you're in lockdown. You're squatting. You start the podcast.
Yeah,
and you got a good vibe to it. And it's funny because Tim and I are working on some stuff. So number one, I'm going to put a link below in the comments. We're going to drive you to his YouTube channel. Please go and support, subscribe, share, give it the same courtesy you give me. And I'm thankful for you. Let's show them what we got. And I'm excited about that. But my question to you though is, you have really high production value. You have a good, these cool guys hanging out in the band. I still got to catch up more, but what I saw, I like the vibe. So how do you pick your content strategy, or your strategies, having the strategy, but I just like the vibe. So walk us through how you set up the podcast.
I mean, I never wanted to go into it alone. I knew I wanted somebody I needed to feed off of with. There's only so much I can do. Like I can probably keep it going for a little bit, but
correct.
And I know Roger, we've been in bands since we were 18 together. We got a lot of stories.
Correct.
You know, we've been in like 5 bands together. And he was the perfect one because we very much get along, but on face value, he's this big, huge dude who loves football and stuff. And it's the exact opposite. Like music is the thing that brought us together, you know? Yeah. So he's the exact opposite that I would kind of think to team myself up with, but I think we got a good, he's the very, like, he yells and he's aggressive and he, you know, he's that bro type of throw you around, you know, he's that guy. But, you know, I love him to death. And I think we have this good rapport. We got this good back and forth. We like to dig at each other a little bit, but we also know what buttons not to push, you know? So, he was my guy, especially with music. He's the the only person I text when I'm like, oh man, I just found out this new band. You know, he's that guy. So
now, so it seems like you're like doing newer bands on the come, that kind of stuff, which I love because you're kind of helping out like some of those younger players get out there. I think it's harder to get discovered. I know they say social media makes it easier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not necessarily, because just because you throw it on SoundCloud doesn't mean you get the awareness. But let's first start out by your appetite and your interest in music. What are some of the bands that you like? What are some of your favorite Jersey bands?
Ooh, Jersey bands. I mean, the only one that comes to mind now. I mean, as far as who we're bringing on the good tunes, it's everybody that, like you saying, we're supporting the younger types. But to be honest, it's people that we've known throughout the years, at least so far. Okay. Yeah, at least one person in each thing. I think the youngest people we've had on there, which is a couple years younger than us, but we only brought them on because we were in a band with one of their brothers at the time or something like that.
So you're getting old, basically.
Yeah, so we're sort of like, hey, we're still relevant. We're still cool kids. We're hip and jive.
I love you.
Dating myself, I guess.
so hold on, but let's go legacy first, so we have a reference. Then we'll go back to some of the newer folks. Who are some of the more popular Jersey bands that you like growing up that were Jersey based or from Jersey? Because you know how it works. Once you get super big, unless you're Bruce or Bon Jovi, you forget New Jersey. But who are some of your Jersey originated bands?
Well, it's easy to say those names, you know. I mean, the people I'm gonna bring up are people you probably never. I don't even know if you heard of, like really hardcore bands. Like, oh my God, let's see. We've played with a band called Shades of Decay.
Okay.
We played with a band called, I went to school with people in a band called Nag Hammadi.
Oh, cool.
You ever heard of them?
No. So you're like more esoteric. Okay.
Like, yeah. I mean, like when people are, you know, I don't know if you ever heard of Prince of Peace shows or, you know, Holy Cross shows in Tom's River. Maybe you got some listeners that be like, oh man, I was there. Because we were in a band called Through the Gray.
Okay.
So we were doing a lot of metal stuff. You know, there's also PLP Log Cabin in Manchester, I believe it was.
Okay.
So all these old places. I mean, there's also Face the Ocean we used to play with when I was in a band called As Luck Would Have It.
Okay.
So and those are all the people that we're looking back on and be like, hey, you still doing stuff?
Oh shit.
Oh, you are? Why don't you come back and see? Yeah, we're trying to keep it, you know, trying to rank up that good karma, trying to rank up those favors, you know? Because we're gonna call in those favors later.
Now. So they're actually I did not hear any of those bands. I'm gonna listen to this slowly. I'm gonna check. Are these like metal bands, hair bands? What genre of rock is it? If you had to segment it, if you will.
It's this is why I bring in Roger. He knows all the subgenres. You know, he can go on for days. He's like, it's probably a little bit of hardcore, a little bit of post-hardcore, a little bit of metal. You know, it's all in there.
Well, so I'm old. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and it's funny because she's getting into like emo music, and one of her biggest bands is MCR, which is from Belleville, New Jersey.
There you go. Oh yeah.
And like I wasn't super young when they came out, but I was younger. I had more hair before. And I'm starting to see a trend of like the Gen Z discovering kind of our generation, probably older than you, but our generation music, which is pretty cool. So that's why I kind of like good tunes. You're introducing and reintroducing those types. How did this is random, but the Jersey band scene, if you remember, like the Jersey Shore, you go down to Belmar, there was like the Nerds.
Right, the Nerds, yeah.
Yeah, like there was like a 4 or 5 big bands. Like if you wanted to show
I know
up,
I know in Asbury, Daz and the Swagmatics are big around there. Daz and the Swagmatics, they're awesome there. Yeah, there's a lot of staples.
Yeah, but what's interesting though is you'd be like, hey, I want like the Nerds to play at my wedding because it's cool or something.
Right.
They got like 10 grand to show up. Like it was great. Like I was like, what? Like, what the? Anyway.
Right. I couldn't even imagine charging someone for me to play. You know, I never.
Well, it was nuts. So I don't know. so I'm guessing, respect to the Nerds and those type of
bands, hey, if it's working out,
that they were demand a good amount of money. I'm assuming they got whacked during COVID, right? So like, you know, because that's where they make their money is in person, bands. A lot of them were covers, so they don't have like the IP and stuff. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have like those legacy ones. How about the people that now are starting bands or getting together, maybe guys they knew? What are they doing? Are they doing SoundCloud? Are they doing YouTube? Are they doing even Instagram? What's a way to promote? Because Good Tunes is promoting some bands, which I love. But what if you're a newer artist? Like, how do you get the word out there?
Apparently, from what I've been learning, and it's a good thing that we're having those people who are still doing it because they're in it. Like I'm only just working on something and looking to release, so I'm in the learning stages. But it's all about Spotify playlists. Yeah. It's all about playlists. Get on those playlists. Talk to curators. Try and grease those elbows. Try and get on their playlists. And I'm just like, whoa, that's a totally new game. And like everything you just named, SoundCloud and YouTube. I get it. I get that. But then they're talking about Spotify and playlists and all these things. And I got tabs saved teaching me like what curators, how to get to them and all that.
I
either submithub.com is like a big thing.
Yeah, the CD Baby, all this and that. I reluctantly, because I'm a digital marketer, right? And I could promote anything digitally. So we took up some clients in the music space and it was hard. I got to tell you. Yeah. And I have like an ecosystem that like, hey, if you want some downloads or you want some listens and you want whatever, not hard in that sense. But when I got into the whole Spotify genre and I wanted to expand exposure on Spotify, I ran into, hey, you need to be on these playlists, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm an influential guy. Have a good client. There's stuff I can do for them. Let's work it. And a lot of these guys wanted to get paid. That's like, at least maybe because I'm a marketer, not a band person. But some of the ones that I went with, like, yeah, you can come on. Here's the fee. Here's this. Here's that. Here's this. And I was like, holy shit. And one thing I don't like, I don't know if you ran into this, but a lot of sites that you go to, like this is an example in the hip hop space because I was doing a hip hop artist too. You go to World Star Hip Hop, right? And you're like, hey, I'd love to get featured or I'd love to get it on. I thought it was like YouTube. You get it up, and then if you want to get featured, you're paid. You got to pay like $2,500 just to get on. So I found a lot of pay for play, like lurching around in the music space. And it sucks because they're kind of feeding off of up and comers who don't have a lot of resources, but are like hungry to get the word out there. So they kind of get caught up. So I like that you have an organic show that if somebody stumbles across it, they can get a new act. You play any instruments, I hope, or what do you play?
No, I'm stuck waiting for musicians to be nice enough to let me sing on their music.
Okay, so you're a singer then. You're a singer. Then.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say because I was like I wasn't sure. Like again, Tim and I talked briefly, but I wasn't sure if you were a singer. Okay, so how many?
Sorry, I was just gonna say I tried to do guitar when I was in high school, but I didn't have the patience and I was just frustrated. And I was like, screw this,
All right. So we established that you're a music aficionado, right? Now, Have you sung, like, have you led in a band or just more been like, just kind of like messing around?
No, we've released like EPs, gone, we've
So you're downplaying it. So you're downplaying it.
We printed through disc makers, we've made that trip. You know all about it.
I love it. I love it. Did you have like a short residency anywhere or a local spot in Jersey that used to play, Asbury Park or whatever? Just more to curiosity.
We played a lot. Oddly enough, we played like 2 shows at a local TGI Fridays. We played at Wonder Bar in Asbury.
Wonder Bar is a good play. That's a good play.
Yeah, I mean, like we've done like, there's always some Warped Tour or Bamboozle like contest to get on there. So through the years, you gotta sell the tickets, and you gotta do round 1, round 2, round 3, or the final round. We played at Stone Pony. I played at Starland. I mean, you name it, I probably played there. I mean, it wasn't like a huge show. It was probably just like a battle of the bands, but still, I played there, and it's paying the dues is not so fun. Still waiting for it to pay off.
now you were mentioning that you are kind of reconnecting with some artists, right? That are like, let's call them, sake of argument, colleagues of yours, right? Like kind of like been around a little longer in the tooth like me. But you're also dealing with some of the newer up and coming bands that might be a little younger. What are some of the difference between the older music, if you will, and the newer music in terms of style, cadence, etc.? What differences do you see, or if any, none?
Well, now you're getting the resurgence of punk rock thanks to MGK.
Yeah.
So, but the fear of the old people like you and I, we don't want the kids these days to think MGK created that. Yeah, like he started it, Yes. I don't want to be like, hey, back in, that actually came. I don't want to be that guy. Get off my lawn and stuff. But we don't want the wrong message, But like you said, they're going back to MCR. They are going back, and by the help of us. Oh, that's my dad playing that lame music. Hey, wait a minute, that's something that MGK listens to. Oh, maybe it's not so bad.
What sucks though is you're actually noble. Like I could play whatever and it could be good, and she'll listen to the opposite because if I listened to it, I would ruin it. She's 11, you know what I mean? It's like one of those
right.
Maybe she's older, she'll be nostalgic, and I don't know, maybe like U2 or Frank Sinatra or something. Who the fuck knows? But you never know. So
you never know, man. I'm still listening to Billy Joel sometimes. You never know when you just gotta feel it.
I love Billy Joel to this day. I'm like kind of saddened because he played that long kind of residency at MSG, and I just didn't go. Saw him a few times before, but I should have went. So now post, we're kind of getting. I won't say we're getting out of COVID because all I know is I'll say this. Then
don't jinx it, man.
Then a fourth wave. New Jersey podcaster causes fourth wave, right? but with that being said, though, we are hopefully vaccinated, all that kind of fun stuff. How does how does a scene reemerge? Is it smaller shows, maybe streaming on social platforms? Because I'm not super gonna go to the Wonder Bar tomorrow and like 500 people like mosh pit, and not that I probably would anyway, but you know what I'm saying? Like, how does a reemergence of the real music scene work post pandemic, in your opinion?
I mean, it depends on how desperate you are to play and how desperate you are to get out there and listen. And those people will come out if there's 50% or 75% or standing in groups separated. They'll go out because they're like, I just need to. I don't care. Yeah. And then those people who are a little bit more, I don't want to say scared because whatever, who are a little bit more hesitant, as those things increase, like, okay, it's safer. They'll fill the gaps. Like, I think people are underestimating how much people just want to get the F out of the house,
Well, I think if you see in Florida, right? So as the time of this, I'm going to live the tapes. We're going to put up tonight, but as of this conversation in Florida, the pendulum swung so far the other way. They had to put a curfew. People were partying, twerking on cars, going nuts. And I know Jersey's a little bit of a different jam. So I kind of see it going one of both ways, and tell me where you think it'll go. I think when things are done, I think the young people don't give a shit. I think Asbury Park's packed again, Seaside's packed, wherever the young whippersnappers go, right?
I probably would have felt the same if that was their age. Nothing can ever kill me.
Exactly. And let's be honest, the data is somewhat, I'm not getting too political. The data somehow supports where if you're 22, now, we're not talking about protecting Nona, but I'm talking about, or Nana, whatever you come from. I get protecting the older and the immunocompromised. But if you're generally younger, you're going to probably be okay, right? So I envision the scene kind of coming pretty hard. I envision the scene going back. But also, I'm like thinking as like a business owner, right? Like, so I have like a band come, and it's November, and like we're kind of the tail end, or COVID's kind of stamped out. Do I want a packed bar? Like, do I want that, God forbid, that one person walks in and causes like a mini outbreak? Like, do you think even post-pandemic, may limit the capacity just because, like, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, Tim. November this year, I got the vaccine with my fiance. She's younger, but she's got the vaccine. We're in Asbury Park for date night. We're staying over. We go to a band and there's 1,000 people. I don't know if I'm there. I'd be honest. I got to get there. Maybe not there yet. But do you think owners will be proactive and say, maybe limit it themselves because they're worried about outbreaks or worried about liability? Or you just think once this is over, it's going to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll? I'd love to hear your opinion.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, when it comes down to the pocket. It comes down to whether you can keep your place open because you're, you're, like you're saying, you're an infestation hotspot or something like that. You know, I mean, I don't know do you have any insight on how insurance is going to handle that, or is going to liability?
So what happened was, the little I know, because I do own another business, is there's not legal protection per se that if your employee gets it or somebody walks in and gets it. And I think there's a little lobbying with the attorney associations that they got in and blunted that bill. Not that there's been any large scale lawsuits yet, but I just don't trust any, I just don't trust anybody. And then the other part too is, like, do you contact trace? Meaning, like, do you have a concert at the Wonder Bar or whatever? You say, hey, you're going to have 1,000 people come. You maybe check for whatever. And then maybe, like when you used to go to DJs back in the day, they had a little card thing and it took a picture of your license and you went in a database. Maybe you contact trace. I don't see. That's what I'm saying. I'm super fascinated to see how people react. So I do marketing, as you know, and I was reading that a lot of the ads already are like super sexy. They're over the top, and they're predicting kind of like a roaring 20s and like the 60s of just like a new sexual revolution, pent up demand. The ads are going to be sexy. The parties are going to be sexy. And again, it's going to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And like, I understand that conceptually, and maybe Miami is like a kind of a lead in, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, when did they stop advertising sexiness? Is that new? There was
that, I think it was a Gene ad that came out and put a comment below if you can remember. It's super recent. I'm talking like last week. And it was like all like naked people like laying on the bed, and like it was like, and they were kissing, and like I didn't think I'm older, but I didn't think anything wrong with it. I'm not that old, right?
Yeah.
And as a marketer, it was a little edgy, it was a little edgy,
right.
And they got like lambasted. They got really beat up, and like this is too much, blah blah. And like here's the thing, like so we and I won't say the client name, but we presented something to a client that was, now, and I'm not going to lie, it was a little sexy. And I don't blame, I'm going to say him or her, so you can't triangulate, but he was like, that's a little insensitive nowadays. There's people like, passing, they're dying, they're sick. And you're worried about like having like a hot dude and a hot guy out there. But here was our take. People need a respite away from this. People that like, what is that movie? Shawshank, either get busy living or you get busy dying. Like for those that make it, for those that pass, we have to be sensitive. Those that immunocompromised, we need to protect. But we also are going to live. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like that's why I'm like I was super excited to have you on and talk about a little bit about the music scene, especially in New Jersey. So I'd like to see how it pans out. Now, what are some of the things you're working on your upcoming shows? So we'll put the link to your YouTube channel. And we'll probably easier to do the latest episode, because when you go to a channel, people have ADD. They see all this shit, they don't click. So we'll probably put your latest show. But what talk us about some upcoming shows that you have in the queue.
So when we take a break from interviewing people and talking about new music we've discovered, we talk about our old music. It's kind of just a nostalgia trip. It's kind of just hey, no one bought or listened to our music back in the day, and let's see if we can shove it in your face again. Seriously, I've got hundreds of wrapped CDs that still unsold from like 10 years ago. My band, when my guests come on, I'm just like, take this, please. Just take this. I love
it. I have books, so I'm with you. You have books. You have CDs. I have books, and I categorically relate to that. So it's basically just a jam session. You and Roger Wuy have a jam session. You have some cool dudes on. You guys
Stupid stories,
You guys are in a garage. when this nonsense clears up, I'd love to come out. I have no skill to offer you other than be like the old chubby guy in the corner. But I would love to. I would love to. So how can we find you? So for those listening, we're going to put a link, and those watching, we're going to put a link. But those that are truly audio, how can we find you, Tim?
We post Good Tunes podcast through our Idiot Box YouTube channel.
Okay.
On Instagram, we're at Idiot Box NJ for New Jersey. Idiot Box NJ. My personal one is Timmy Good Tunes, and Roger's is at Roger Wuy, WUY. Nice. And that's it. My band Wake Up Paradise is coming out with some new music at Wake Up Paradise for Instagram.
I love it.
So hopefully we'll have some new music. Now I'm done talking about my old music, and maybe we can talk about some new music I got coming out. So.
And then in 10 years, when the show's still going, you could pitch the old music to the new people.
Never give up hope. Never, ever, ever.
Tim, love the vibes. Tim kind of came on last minute, so thank you for coming on. So please check out his YouTube channel. Check out, like, comment, and subscribe. And Tim, thank you for being on the New Theory podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.